And the rule I want to share with y'all tonight is to dream big, but start small. And there's going to be 3 parts to the talk. First, I'm going to give y'all a little background on my personal story. And then I'm going to talk about how that rule was used to create and build News Story. And then I'm going to encourage you to dream big, but to start small on whatever dream you have this year or this summer. So tonight we are going to use News Story as the example, because that's what I am lucky to do today. But growing up, really starting an organization like News Story was about the last thing that I thought I would do. I was fortunate to be raised by amazing parents. I grew up basically in the church, but the whole Christian thing wasn't really for me. I thought it was boring, narrow-minded, too many rules, judgmental, not adventurous, not ambitious. I would miss out on all the fun and joy in life. And I thought I had like the master trick, because in the grand scheme of things, I knew that like God and faith was probably important. So I was like, I'll just figure it out when I'm like 50 or maybe 70, or ideally just hack the whole thing and figure it out like right before I die. Because I thought living my life for Jesus couldn't possibly be better than living life my way. So throughout high school and college, and a little bit of my time here in Buckhead, for the most part, I lived a pretty self-consuming lifestyle. And I was chasing after what I call the 3 Gs. And that's not generosity and gratitude and God. No, it was gold, glory, and girls. Basically the same 3 things that men have been chasing all throughout history, what Solomon calls chasing after the wind. And it turns out when those are your top priorities, it's just unfulfilling. And so here I was in Buckhead in my early 20s. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't rock bottom. I was just confused because I was longing for a bigger purpose and a more meaningful life. And then God used one meeting that really became the catalyst to my new journey. So how this story happened, before News Story, I actually had a for-profit startup, and I was raising venture capital money. And there was a well-known CEO in town, and I really wanted to meet him and get an investment from him, but of course, that's a hard meeting to get. And so I can't publicly recommend this approach, but this is what I did to get the meeting, and then how God really just flipped it upside down and basically changed my life. So this CEO, I knew where he worked and had his meetings, and so I would just so happen to work there at the same time, just so happen to go into the elevator as him at the same time, walk alongside him in the parking lot, and then, we run into each other, and I introduce myself, right? I call it serendipitous stalking, which some of you that are single here tonight know a thing or two about serendipitous stalking. Maybe you even did it here tonight. You know, you have your eye on that person, they go to the coffee bar, you go to the coffee bar, didn't see you there, you know? So that's how I met him. And then I had to email him so many times to get on this calendar, which I call being politely persistent, which can also be a good tactic, the singles. And then we finally met. And at the meeting, you know, I'm like a young, ambitious dude. I'm asking him about leadership. And he tells me about this philosophy called servant leadership. And I'm like, man, come on, what do you mean by that? And he's like, this is how I model my leadership style after Jesus. You know, the kind of leadership style that changed the world. I'm like, that's pretty interesting. And that just kind of reframed what I thought about faith. And I decided that I would at least take a step. And so he said, hey, go to Buckhead Church, just try it out. And so, all by myself, I was like, all right, I still got a bunch of objections. I don't have all my answers, but I'm not gonna let not having it all figured out paralyze me from at least starting small. And so I showed up, and I took a step, and I took a step, and then about 6 years ago, here at church, actually right up there, I was baptized. And everything began to change. Thank you. Yeah, it's cool. Everything began to change. My heart was just transformed. I have no other way to describe that from just happening. And I made a total 180 in my life. And that change led me on my first trip to Haiti. And I went down there a couple years after the 2010 earthquake, where hundreds of thousands of homes were destroyed, forcing families to grow up without one of life's most basic human needs: adequate safety and shelter. I met kids that slept restlessly on dirt floors. I was there in this tent. I could feel the heat. I could sense the smell that families and kids were just used to. And I could see how the one place that we all want, and better yet, deserve to feel safe, was actually a breeding ground for disease and sickness. And at News Story, we believe that in 2019, with all the advancements we have in our world, no human being should live like this, and no baby should be born into this environment. And that is what News Story is on mission to change. So I took that trip, and I got back, and I was only 24. And so I didn't really have any goals of starting an organization. And frankly, I had had some bad previous experiences with other charities. I thought there was just a lack of transparency, accountability, and a really big lack in innovation. And then I was like, wait a second. From an entrepreneurial perspective, those are problems that could be solved. And so decided to start News Story and create an organization that would just do things differently. And so I started small. I met Matthew and Allie, who are our co-founders at age 24, and we began here in Atlanta, master planning in our little house, not how we'd change the world, but how we would fund our first home. Andy Stanley has this saying that I love, I say it all the time: to do for one what you wish you could do for all. And that's what we started with. And I believe when you have a small goal that is achievable, the thing I love about that is all excuses are off the table, because it is totally up to you if you want to make it happen. And that's what we did. And then we took a leap and we took a risk and we applied to the world's top startup accelerator called Y Combinator. They've produced companies such as Airbnb, Dropbox, and we applied knowing that only about 1 to 2% of applicants actually make it in. There's about 10,000 startups that applied. Turns out, against all odds, we got in as one of the first nonprofits in 2015. And so me and my little co-founders, we moved to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco, and we began this program. And just to give y'all some context of the type of peers that were there in the class with me, I want to introduce you to someone, and you can just see what it was like. So I'm gonna introduce you to William. Hi, Brett, I'm William. Hey, William, what's up, man? What's your background? Well, I did my undergrad at MIT, then I spent a little time at NASA, then I went and got my PhD at Oxford, and now my startup's creating a new cryptocurrency to compete against Bitcoin in Asia. How about you? Oh, that's nice, William. Of course you are. I'm Brett. I went to Florida State. Football, sororities, fraternities, and I'm just doing my best to fund some houses, man. Oh, good luck. That's what it's like. And I tell you that story because I felt out there that me and my co-founders, that God had put us in a place where we were underdogs, but with a big dream. And I felt the bigger the dream, the more important it was to be grounded in my faith and his ability and not my own. And so I depended. That was my strategy. I depended and I said, I'm not gonna try to figure this all out on my own as like a young leader. I was just gonna depend and say like, look, I can't do this without you. Like I am not qualified, but I'm gonna trust And I'm gonna work hard, and I'm gonna show up with costly consistency every day. And if you wanna make something happen, then you'll make it happen. And this is what's happened in News Story's first 4.5 years. I'm gonna give y'all a little 1-minute summary of really what we've done. So we ended up funding that first house in Haiti. We then became obsessed with the impact, and we grew, and we got bigger. And one house turned into building neighborhoods that were built by local workers using local materials. And then that turned into what we do today, which is we build entire communities with hundreds of homes, thousands of people. And in our first 4.5 years, from just starting small here, trying to do one house, we've now raised over $30 million in revenue, impacting over 2,600 homes. That's about 12,000 people, building 22 of those communities throughout Haiti, El Salvador, Mexico. We've been very fortunate to be named by Fast Company twice, in 2017 and 2019, as one of the top 10 most innovative social impact companies in the world. Our co-founders have been named Forbes 30 Under 30 Entrepreneurs, and our 3D printing project, which you're about to see, has gotten over 1 billion online impressions and about 600 million video views. And we've done all that with this team. Thank you. Yeah. And the number one reason for that success has been our team. And some of them are here tonight. I love y'all. We have an office in San Francisco and an office and a team in Atlanta. We'll be hiring in the future here in Atlanta. Go to our careers page. But our youth has been our advantage. As you can see, it's an all millennial team. This is usually the part where I make a millennial joke, but you guys are all my peers, so I'm gonna just be real with y'all. Millennial jokes are awful. They're really not that funny. But if you ever want an older person to laugh at a joke and you're talking, tell a millennial joke. So yes, this is the team that has made everything happen. Now, when starting out, I think it's really important to have a differentiating dream. And so for me, for whatever reason, I just had a very strong conviction that there needed to be a more modern and innovative nonprofit in the world. And that is what we started with. And one example of that is the mindset that we have around taking risk, research and development, and innovation. And we're able to do this because we have a unique group of donors that fund all of our R&D and innovation called the Builders. And they enable us to try some crazy things and try to invent new solutions that can impact the world. One of those is 3D printing homes. Now, before I get started on 3D printing houses, at this point, we're all familiar with just 3D printing in general, right? We have them in our schools, our offices, our universities. So how new, how rare is 3D printing homes actually? Well, for reference, here's the number of habitable, permitted, 3D printed homes in the world that we know of. And here's the one we helped create. So what you're looking at is the world's first permitted 3D printed home. We printed this with our partner Icon in Austin, Texas last year as our proof of concept. Now, to show you a little how it works and how I explain it to my mom is what you're looking at is a proprietary cement mix, and it's coming out of this nozzle almost like soft serve ice cream is how it's coming out, the consistency. And then it is layering a built to last home that will last for decades, a generation, with this method. Now, this is what the machine looks like today. Pretty cool, right? This was the dream, this is what we wanted it to look like, but how did we start? We started small. We started as some crazy, weird, unqualified kids in a backyard trying to print houses. This is me and my team members literally in the backyard in front of our prototype 3D printing machine before anybody thought this was cool, before anybody knew about 3D printing homes. And the people that did know, what did they tell us? They said, what are you guys doing? Just stick to what works. Be more normal. But the way we think about that is normal doesn't create breakthroughs. And when there's 1 billion people in the world that don't have adequate shelter, we need breakthroughs. And so this is how we started. It worked, and we now have a mantra at News Story that your dream, whatever your dream is right now in your head, it is only crazy until it's not.